Welcome to Ex Machina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us on another edition of Ex Machina. In the house tonight with me is Robbie Rip Rains. You just got the two of us tonight, so yeah, our normal shenanigans won't be quite as elaborate as our usual shenanigans, but we got all of us. But we'll still have plenty of shenanigans. So if you like shenanigans, pistol whip the next guy that does shenanigans.
Hey, Farva, what's that restaurant you like with all the goofy crap on the walls?
Shenanigans? You talking about shenanigans?
Ooh. And we're off.
Off to a rolling start.
It took 20 seconds.
I couldn't resist.
I knew that's where you were going when you said shenanigans. I was just waiting for it.
How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. How's South Crack-a-Lackey this fine evening?
Finally, the weather is starting to get to a manageable. It was like 75 today, so that's really good.
Yeah, it was in the upper 80s here today. It wasn't bad. Well, I'm sorry, mid 80s, but it was pretty nice. I'm kind of really looking forward to what we refer to as hoodie weather, but I like it when it's cooler in the evening.
Yeah, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, it felt really good, and then last week it was back up in the 90s. And then now it seems like this week it's back down to 80s and 70s, which is, I wish it would stay that way the entire year round. That'd be fine with me.
Did you see that picture that Spencer Jameson posted of the deer that he feeds?
Yeah.
The winter coat already coming in.
Yep.
That's a pretty good indicator. We're going to have an early winter, I would guess.
Probably so.
It's a great indicator to do it. I mean, look at the trees, look at the animals, watch their behavior. Because whether they quote unquote know or it's just an instinctual thing, the animals will start changing their behavior. I mean, the squirrels have been stocking up they've been raiding my walnut tree like crazy. We usually pick up a bunch of walnuts and put them in 5-gallon buckets. There are places here in Missouri that pay top dollar for black walnuts, but we also hull them and use them when we cook. But you're hard pressed to find a walnut in the backyard this year.
Yeah. But like you said, it's just all about watching nature, which is, we've said that many a time about what we're doing here. Just look at nature.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get most of the answers. Yep. You'll get most of the answers you need just by looking around.
This is the time of year when the leaves start to turn that I like to go up to Tonka State Park because it's just like an ocean of trees up there. I love to go up there and walk the trails and see all the colors. It's one of my favorite places to go in the fall.
I know we didn't stop, but didn't we drive by there? Oh,
we went up that way. We didn't actually go to the park.
Okay.
But next time you're here, I want to take you up there because there's some pretty cool stuff in that area. We saw a lot of stuff, but we didn't get to see everything I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can plan something out around towards the end of fall before it gets really cold.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we're going to be doing the Smiddle Cave thing, like I was wanting to check out all of the caves in that area, because I've now got a really good idea on how to find the other two. So if we're going to do that, I want to do it like once we've had a frost, because I don't want to get covered with ticks and chiggers and mosquitoes. And I mean, when we were in Combs Ferry, man, we were eating bugs by the hundreds. There was just clouds of them damn things around our lights.
Yeah, you couldn't breathe in without ingesting about 100 pounds, it felt like.
Jonathan says they're already getting pecans in Texas. That's a good indicator that winter's coming.
Yeah.
Chris Burkhart says northern Minnesota has a chance of frost this weekend. I'm telling you, it looks like we're probably in for an early and an ugly winter.
I wonder what the almanac says about it. I hadn't read that this year.
It's the old Farmer's Almanac. It's amazing how people have kind of gotten away from checking that. I mean, when we put our garden out, I always check the Farmer's Almanac. I don't trust the local weather guy. meteorologist is the only job you can have where you can be wrong 98% of the time and keep your job.
Yeah. If most other
Hey, little
people
Patty.
were wrong in their jobs as much as meteorologists. So what we're going to talk about tonight, DA?
Well, we're going to talk about the Beast of Bray Road and the Michigan Dogman and the Beast of LBL and the Beast at Werewolf Springs and the Palmyra incident, and even a little bit about Joe Bald, and talk about the similarities and the differences in all of these encounters.
So basically, it Dusty Rose will say we're going to compare and contrast different species of dogmen.
Pretty much. Nice dusty roads, by the way.
Thank you very much.
He always used to crack me up with that.
Yeah, what's funny about that, and here we go deviating again. But I was listening to Cody talk about that, and Dusty's lisp he put it in himself basically, and then Cody actually legitimately has one. It's funny to think that Dusty did that as a this is how I talk, and now Cody actually talks for the lisp.
Greg House says, my grandparents lived by the almanac to the point of planting even doctor's appointments. That doesn't surprise me. My grandparents, planted their garden, they planted fields, everything by the almanac, and my mom and dad both did too. And I'd kind of gotten away from it in the last, 10 years or so. And my middle son was making fun of me for picking one up this last fall. He's like, "What do you want that thing for? It's just the old wives' tales." And even he was like, "The thing's right more than it's wrong."
Yeah. So, where shall we start?
Well, just like the title says, let's start with Bray Road.
Well, that's one of my, I guess that's probably one of the more popular Dogman, werewolf, whatever you want.
Well, probably one of the most well-known. I don't know if it's the most popular. I think when you look up Beast of LBL is probably going to be the first thing that shows up. But the Beast of Bray Road is the one that everybody's heard of. Even people that are new to the field have heard of the Beast of Bray Road.
Well, when I'm say it that way, what I mean is you don't see, and granted, I know the Asylum really is using the term movie loosely, but there's a couple of movies about the Beast of Bray Road, and as far as like serious inquiries, yes, I would agree with you and say the LBL is the most popular as far as that goes, but the more mainstream, I guess, would have been the better term for it, was the Beast of Bray Road, but I that was probably, even though the LBL happened before Bray Road was really I mean, I know the sightings go way back, but that was actually in the news before the Beast of Bray Road became popular.
Linda Godfrey, once she started writing stories about the Beast of Bray Road, it really got national attention.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It took her. Sorry, I had to plug my phone up. It took her doing that to really get it popularized. But
Linda did a lot to bring awareness to the subject of Dogman.
Right, but there was nobody that did that for the LBL. I mean, other than people telling the story, but that was so hushed up. I guess maybe a lot of it's because there's never really been a documented kill on Bray Road other than animals. I mean, there's been some people that have been chased. There's been some people who had some close encounters, but you don't have that stigma like you got at LBL.
Right.
And I think that's a big, and that may be some of the differences we're talking about tonight is, the differences in
behavior.
Yeah. And,
I think the ones in LBL are definitely more violent than just about anywhere else.
Well, what you think about when we talk about the differences in the Bigfoot species, it's kind of the same thing. It's that, what's that mentality like we talk about? you hear people talk about, oh, it was so beautiful, and I just sat there and watched. And you get stories like Todd Standridge, where he's like, I was lucky I made it out of there without him tearing me apart. And it's kind of the same way with Dogman. You look at your encounter in LBL. In LBL, where some of the weirder and more violent stuff happens, but you have one where it just looked at you and ran off.
Yeah, well, I've got a theory about that, about the behavior, because like I said, just a couple of nights before, I was in Demumber's Bay and played that dying rabbit call, and I had a whole different reaction. I think the fact that it was daylight and I could see it was why it took off. I think if it had been dark and I'd have been walking down that road, I'd have been a smorgasbord for attacks, because I really don't think it wanted to be seen and it didn't want to be noticed. However, if it had been pitch black, it would have been completely different.
So the theory you have is maybe they're all the same. It's just time of day or a circumstance, maybe.
Whether or not they have the advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we say, look in nature. Think about the natives in India, how they have started wearing masks on the back of their head
because of tigers.
Because tigers only attack when you get your back turned. So they started putting those masks on the back of their head. And when they did that and started doing that, attacks went down by, like, I want to say 30 or 40%. So maybe there's something to that theory.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's more to it than that.
I mean, that's a very, very interesting theory, that maybe everybody that was attacked, they were in a vulnerable position.
Yeah, that could be the case. I mean, to me, it just struck me here just the other day that, I think had that been the circumstances been different, I think it probably would have been far more aggressive.
Well,
because I've been told by numerous people that I was lucky I got out of Demumber's Bay without having a violent attack, because that area is like the epicenter. I saw multiple eye shine in the trees when I was getting the hell out of there.
The situation, I 100% agree with you on that, because if there have been a few different things in the thing that we had happen to us in LBL that night, if it hadn't been me, Johnny, Greg, Tyler, 4 of us that were all armed, if it had just been 1 or 2 of us, might have been a different story.
Well, Patty, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if there was a print with 3 toes. I'd have to dig into that, but it's not sparking a memory, but I could be wrong.
I don't think I remember hearing it. Maybe, but the only time I remember anything specifically about 3 toes is the Honey Island Swamp Monster and
Dugway.
Boggy Creek.
Yeah.
In that bean field.
Boggy Creek.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the only really mainstream mentions of 3 toes that I can, and I'm not saying that's that's the end all be all. It's just only 2 that I can remember where anybody's really mentioned 3 toes.
Well, Bray Road, it got aggressive with a mother and a daughter. If I remember correctly, it reached in a window, but nobody was hurt. And as far as I know, there are no fatalities reported in that area.
No.
There are people that have been freaked out and they found dead animals, but I don't know that it's ever attacked a person.
The guy from Fish and Game or whatever they call it, the one that had to respond to pick up roadkill deer that got hit, it chased him down. Road. It chased him down and grabbed the deer out of the back of his truck. So, I mean, I guess you could list that as an attack, even though it was going for the deer.
Kay Bauer says, DA, did you ever hear the guy talking about the Beast of LBL having 2 rows of teeth and 2 sets of ears? I have not heard that. Do you know who said that, or do you have a link? If you do, send it to me in a text message or in an email. I'd like to check that out. I hadn't heard that one at all at LBL.
And that's another thing that's different and has always interested me or puzzled me about LBL is you hear about these attacks, but then all of a sudden you can't really find anything more on them other than what people like we are doing. talk about it, but you can always find stuff on Bray Road.
Mhm.
I mean, most all that stuff is out there in public domain if you look, and most all the eyewitness accountings or attacks or whatever. But you can't find anything on LBL, and that puzzles me.
Well, I think the stuff that's happened in LBL has been deliberately suppressed.
And Casey, yes, he was parked doing paperwork, but when he felt the back of his truck or something rocked the back of his truck, he turned and looked, saw it, took off. It chased him down and grabbed the truck or grabbed the deer out of the back of the truck. But yes, he was parked doing the paperwork on the truck or on the roadkill.
Little Patty says, DA, if memory is right, it was found in a cornfield. I'll have to look into that. I don't remember there being one with 3 toes, but like I said, my memory is not perfect. But I will if you know where the link to the story about it is, or I'll see if I can dig something up. But yeah, I definitely believe it's entirely possible. I've not seen it.
But I guess another big thing of that of the cover up, I think that lends to the fact that Bray Road is just, it's just an area where something like this happens to come through, whereas LBL has got all the other stuff with it. Not national park.
LBL was a little it's on government land for one.
Yeah.
Bray Road is all on public land. Well,
yeah.
It's all on land that belongs to individuals, not the government.
So why are they, or why can you find stuff on one, not on the other?
Again, I think some of this is being deliberately suppressed. Like when Steve and I first started researching Joe Bald, we found it was either 8 or 9 articles mentioning people that from like 1975 to like 1999 of people that had gone missing in or around the Joe Bald Park. And then when I went back to print those articles out to have them for my, to talk about here on the show or put references in the books, they were gone. We couldn't find them again.
Yep. Well, and same thing with the LBL, the story about the 2 bikers or bicyclists.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to find that story one time and then it's gone. So,
well, I still hear that story told, but I can't find any of the articles related to it.
Yeah.
And it seems like those articles are only around long enough for people to start talking about them. And when they realize people noticed, they pull the articles. Well, Miss Naomi, I found reference to one that was a mysterious, what they referred to as mauled by wild dogs. And at the end of the article, it said, and this is not a conspiracy theory, so don't ask. It literally said that in the article. Like, oh, come on now. That's a little much. Jeff, you ain't wrong. Stay strapped or get clapped.
And Casey, Greg's the one you need to ask if there's anything in Anniston, Alabama. Greg's the Bama expert. So ask House about Bama. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Alabama for sure.
I got, it's a new month. This is our first show in September. And that means we've got 10 free memberships to give away. So hopefully it doesn't pick me this time, which is weird. You would think it would not pick my channel. But it goes from everybody who's in the chat. And since I'm logged in monitoring the chat, I guess there's a chance it might pick me. But I'm going to give away 5, and then we'll do another 5 here shortly. So hopefully we'll see some folks. Misty Haynes got 1. Jonathan got 1. Northwoods Cryptid got 1. Billy Schilling got 1. And Vincent Ellison. Hey, congrats, y'all.
Way to go. Somebody who was it? Make sure I get it right. Mary Cole wanted to hear the bicycle story from the LBL.
Go ahead, Robbie.
So, basically the story goes, there were these 2 bicyclists, and let's say they were going from California to New York. I don't remember the actual state to state that they were going to, but their trip took them through LBL. And this was before everybody had the cell phones like this. They had a like one of the first generation, I think, wasn't it, DA satellite phones?
Yeah, first generation of satellite phones.
So, and they were constantly calling into one of the guys' sisters and checking in with her like
They
every
checked in with
day.
her every evening when they would
Yeah,
stop
every evening. Well, they were out in front of a storm, and the storm was kind of catching them. So they were like, "Well, we're not going to make it much further than this little place called LBL." So they were telling her on the phone, "We're going to camp here for the night, and then we'll get up on the road in the morning, and we'll check in with you tomorrow evening." So they went into camp in the LBL. Day goes by. The next night comes in. She doesn't hear anything from them. She's like, "Okay, well, maybe they're just, maybe some, satellite service, or there's something wrong, whatever." Well, the next night comes and they don't, or she didn't hear anything from them. So she calls local authorities around that area, tells them that last time she heard from them, they were getting ready to camp in a place called LBL. So they go out, start looking around for them. Ended up finding the remains of one of the bicycles just destroyed. They found the remains of the other bicycle about 12 feet up in the tree, DA?
Oh, it was higher than that. It was like 20, 25 feet.
Way up off the ground, let's just say. And the bike was bent backwards around the tree. It's like it was wrapped around the tree like a pretzel. And I don't think they ever found any of their remains like they did for that couple.
They found the destroyed campsite, but they never found either of them.
So, and it was pretty close to that original site too. I think it wasn't far. It was in that same general area.
Yeah, it was at one of those public camping areas. And there are a lot of public camping areas in LBL.
So, yeah, that was a interesting story to say the least.
And that's not the only disappearance in LBL.
No,
I mean, that's one of the big primary differences between LBL and Bray Road. In Bray Road, if people started disappearing, they wouldn't be able to shut it up like that because most of that land is privately held. I'm sure there is some government land in that area somewhere, but most of the land along Bray Road is privately owned. And the local newspaper there, I believe it's in Elkhorn.
Yeah, Elkhorn,
Wisconsin. The local newspaper carried quite a bit because that's where Linda Godfrey worked, and she started doing a lot of the stories on the Beast of Bray Road. So I don't think it would go unnoticed, that area, because it's still a pretty populated area. So I don't think disappearances and mauled bodies turning up would go unnoticed like it does in LBL, because it's considered a public use area, but it falls under the purview of, well, I think the Kentucky Valley Authority has control of it now. Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. It used to be part of the Parks Department, but now I think the purview of it it's turned over to the Tennessee Valley Authority, or it's the other way around. It might have been originally Tennessee Valley Authority, and now it's under the purview of the parks.
Hey, KC's gonna come say hey to us in Ohio, DA.
Oh, that'd be awesome, dude. Come by. Come on by.
What Hal say? Oh, he's talking. He's talking
about pew pews. Greg says TVA turned it over to the Park Service, so that's the way it was. I knew it was one way or the other, but the Park Service has really done nothing to develop it. They've even closed down a bunch of the primitive campsites. And the one that were the original group of people, the original 4 people were supposedly killed, the family, they even bulldozed that off. It's almost impossible to find unless you know somebody that knows right where it was at. Because I know I drove up and down the road, because it's near DeMumbers Bay. I know I drove up and down the road where it's on probably a dozen times and never knew how close I was.
Yeah, well, from what I was told, we were both very, very, very close where we were at. And that would stand to reason with us having the encounters that we had.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that we both had in that area what potentially could have been violent contact. I
Mhm.
mean, if I hadn't have got out of there when I did in Demumbers Bay after playing that Dying Rabbit call, I think it would have turned violent.
I think it was
They were
headed that way.
they were coming quick. Hey, Poncho. But and in your situation, it was almost like it was trying to lure one of you away from the group. So I
Yeah.
think both of our situations, which were probably less than a mile apart at different times of the year, were both potentially violent incidents. It could have turned violent easily.
Yeah, I honestly think that there were more than one, and that's exactly what they were doing. I don't know if you think there were more than one in your situation or not, but I definitely think there were more than one that night
Well,
when we were out there.
that time that I saw the one, I only saw the one, but down in Demumbers Bay, there was multiple eye shine, and I was my butt was making a nest in the driver's seat, puckering up, trying to get me out of there. So I didn't really count, but I think there was at least 5 or 6. But there was green eye shine all over the trees as my lights panned on it, and then that's when my foot became a little heavy, and I got the hell out of there. Because I'd read stories where they had pushed trees over in front of over the road to keep people from getting away. And I didn't want to be there with a tree down because there was no place to go. There was only one way out of that area. I had that comment up there for a second. Edward Kung Fu Mashburn says, "Hey, DA, I've been writing on my book. It's set in North Carolina at Black Lake. It's a lake in the Uwharrie National Forest." Dude, that sounds pretty cool. But like I was saying about your encounter, did at any point in that did you feel in danger?
Oh, well, I mean, you know me, and that's I didn't think about it at that time, but after I went back and thought about it, when we got back to the hotel, and I was like, yeah, that was pretty hairy. Pardon the pun. I mean, it was, and me and Johnny both have had this conversation several times with each other afterwards, and he's kind of the same way I am. Is he'll rush headlong into it, and then later on think that was pretty stupid. But he felt the same way. He was like, "Yeah," he said, I feel like," he said, "when I first heard you say it, I was kind of like, I don't think so. That it was trying to separate us." He said, "But the more he's thought about it, the more he's like, yeah, I think something was probably trying to separate one or two of us off from everybody else."
If we can build that transmitter deck that I've got the idea for, and it works like we think it is, LBL is one of those places I would like to go live.
Yeah,
Like go down to Demumbers Bay and just go live.
that would be fun.
Oh, speaking of going live, I know this kind of doesn't really have anything to do with going live, but it was something I meant to mention. Have you noticed that there are now other channels and other Facebook groups that are now talking about the tongue pops?
Yes, I have noticed that.
Steve Isdall, for example, from How to Hunt, he's talked about tongue pops. And this is, I'm not saying we were the ones that came up with the idea, but we've been talking about it for a while. And now the idea seems to be gaining some traction.
I'd never saw anybody talk about it or say anything about it until we started talking about it. Like you said, I mean, it could have been, but I never, to my knowledge, we were the first ones that really started talking about that. And think about it. When we started talking about it, when we'd say something, oh no, it's a tree knock. No, it's stupid. That maybe not saying it's stupid.
Until I did it in Gatlinburg.
Yeah,
that got everybody's attention.
Yeah, and y'all just you don't understand. DA and I are sitting there talking to Eli Watson, and we're in the middle of this convention center. People are talking, and it's loud. And DA popped his tongue, and everybody within probably a 50 to 75-foot radius immediately just went silent and stopped and turned around and looked at us like,
"Hey, I don't have my filter program going. Tell me if you can hear this.
It's not as loud as in person, but you can hear it.
Oh, I'm not even trying to do it very loud. I mean, I do it much louder when we're out in the woods.
Yeah, and we've done that several times out in the woods too.
Hey, thank you for the super chat, Vic. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I don't think Bigfoot's walking around with a stick. And Robbie made a very good point. How many times have you walked through the woods and picked up like a stick that's laying on the ground and like either look to use as like a walking stick or to try it out, and it just explodes because it's mostly rotten.
Yeah.
And what are the odds they're going to just have a hardwood stick right to hand? Because a lot of times when we've done the tongue pops, we got an immediate response.
Yeah. Now I will say this because I heard Spencer say this one time on.
Kevin, I'll do it in Ohio. Trust me.
And I think that because we've talked about, we think some of them are tree knocks.
And I think some of them may be like slapping their chest or even beating on the ground. And we're not saying that tongue pop explains it all, but right. I think a good chunk of them are.
But Spencer made the comment that sometimes you'll hear a limb snap and then you won't hear it hit the ground. He feels like that's probably them breaking a good limb off to do something like that. And I agree with that because some things probably are a tree knock. I think what Johnny and I heard that night, and Greg and Tyler on it, I think what we heard that night, I don't think it was a tongue pop because it was so far away and it just had, it just sounded wood on wood. But I've heard plenty of other recordings of it that did not sound like wood on wood that people are like, oh yeah, that's a tree knock. I'm like,
thank you, Angel.
Like a tongue pop.
Thank you for the super chat. But to me, it makes more sense that it would be a tongue pop, especially if our echolocation theory is, and I think that, to me, I honestly believe the echolocating is probably a very viable explanation for why they learned to do it.
Yeah, not
just for communicating above ground, but if we've got plenty of video evidence of humans that have lost their sight and taught themselves to echolocate. Robbie had that video of that guy that taught himself to ride a bike through an obstacle course just by clicking his tongue because he could hear it. He could hear the echoes and knew where the obstacles were. He rode through a obstacle course of cones, didn't touch one of them.
That was on the Discovery Channel.
If we're capable of teaching ourselves that, if these things are partially subterranean, if they spend a lot of time traveling or living underground, that makes absolutely perfect sense that they would use that as a form of echolocation.
But like you said, I think it's a combination of all those things. And I think they all mean different things too. I don't think that, a tree knock probably does not mean the same thing as a tongue click.
Right.
And, I think that we've talked about that before, doing calls and doing things like that. You don't really know what you're saying or what you're doing or, what you're insinuating or inciting, however you want to look at it.
We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to take just a quick moment to hear a short word from an even shorter guy over at Dark Angel Medical.
Hey, everybody. This is Kerry Pocket Doc Davis from Dark Angel Medical, and you are listening to DA Ex Machina with DA Roberts. You may recognize me or some of my products from Dark Angel Medical in some of the Apex Predator, Lakeview Man, and Wild Hunt books, and you can get those products at www.darkangelmedical.com. along with training classes on how to use those products and save a life. Shoot us an email at info@darkangelmedical.com and be the difference.
And don't forget to check out darkangelmedical.com and use discount code cryptid20 for 20% off your entire order. You still cracking up about that, Robbie?
Short word from a short man.
I'm sure Doc would appreciate that if he was here.
Yes, he would.
He'd be flipping us off, but he'd still he'd appreciate it.
It's just a little humor. I mean,
and Doc, if you happen to hear this, we love your brother, and we're going to say a prayer for you. A little prayer.
Yeah, we'll say a little prayer for you. Yeah.
Antonio Vasquez says, have you heard Bigfoot taking human beings and kids with them? There are lots of
Plenty of
stories of people
times.
being taken. Yeah. From Native Americans to early settlers, lots of stories of people going missing and what they believed is at the hands of Bigfoot. It still happens quite a bit, up in Canada. I mean, there's a stretch of highway that they call the Highway of Tears because it's primarily Native Americans that go missing along it. They'll find abandoned cars, or sometimes they won't find a trace, but they would been hitchhiking or walking along that highway and they were just gone. Now, I'm not saying a good chunk of that probably isn't human trafficking, but when an animal takes something, there's rarely much left behind. If it was a bear, there would be something because bears make a hell of a mess, and they wouldn't have dragged a body far. Coyotes, they eat it where they kill it, and it's all you'll find bits scattered over about a 30-yard area. Wolves tend not to leave much behind but bone. But Bigfoot, if it takes somebody, you may never ever have a chance of finding a trace of it. I mean, look at the Albert Osman story. Albert Osman only escaped because he was lucky. Had he not escaped, we never would have heard that story, and it would have just been another disappearance. Northwood says, DA, you guys make it sound like Doc would ride into battle on a war pug. More like a war corgi. It's not. He's not quite pug small, but corgi, yeah.
Yeah.
His battle corgi. Edward Kung Fu says it also has Bigfoot and Dogman are at war. I had to get my grandkids, so I had to get a drink. Yeah, I don't have the PO box anymore. There was something went wrong with the post office. They cut my PO box off without an explanation. I'm in the process of getting one. I'm probably gonna have to get one at the UPS store, but they won't let me get another one at USPS. Don't know why. So I will try to go get one this week, and then you can send it to me. Otherwise, I'll get with me via private chat, and maybe we can figure something out. Got a super chat from Casey Calloway, who just became a member of the channel. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it, dude. Anyway, back to talking Dogman. When you look at the incident that happened at Werewolf Springs, the proximity to LBL kind of, to me, gives credence of the violence of the Werewolf Springs area, because it has killed people at Werewolf Springs. So I think it's either the same creature or the same branch of creature, whereas the ones up at Elkhorn on Bray Road just don't seem to be as violent. I'm not saying they're not capable of it, but they don't seem to be as violent.
Well, and let's look at what there's a lot of big deer, elk, things like that in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. But what about Werewolf Springs and places like that? Is there as big a population for them to feed on? If there's not, then maybe that can kind of explain a little bit more of the aggression. Maybe there's not as much food. Food's a little bit more scarce, just like we've talked about, in Alaska, with it, the further you get north, the meaner stuff gets. Well, maybe it's kind of the same way as, in Werewolf Springs. Maybe there's just a little bit slimmer pickings as far as food goes. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, another place where we had violent encounters was Palmyra, Maine.
Yeah.
And the way they described it, how when they would go out and try to get to their vehicle or something, if they left the light, they would come in and then they would back off when they ran back in the house. To me, that sounds kind of similar to what happened to us in Joe Bald. I mean, they didn't pursue us out where they couldn't. If they could have lured you out into the darkness that night, and you were pretty damn close to it, but if you had gone much farther, I don't think we'd have found you. I think it was its intent to draw at least one of us out.
You probably would have found where everything would have started, because you would have been able to run to the gunfire.
Yeah.
But now, if I'd still been there or not, who knows? I mean, you know. But like you said, luckily you appointed Noah in his new
role as the Robbie
role
Wrangler.
as the Robbie Wrangler that night. So, I think they're very just what we found the next day proves that they're intelligent, and they're
Mhm.
and you can look at what came. I'm sorry, I saw my
So
name.
that night, are you talking about, was your guy telling you to stop at all? Well, that's Robbie wasn't stopping, and Noah was like, "Hey, you're getting a little far away from us. You might want to step back." And that's when Noah got the position of Robbie Wrangler, because at that point we knew somebody had to remind Robbie not to just take off. Robbie's like a bloodhound. He gets that scent, he's ready to go. You just hear him go, "Boo!" and off he goes.
Yonder he goes.
Lord, shoot this thing.
You know, what I was saying with that, we know it's intelligent. We know it. And if you want to look at intelligence as, okay, it knows how to hunt. I mean, you have to have a semblance of intelligence or some type of instincts or whatever.
Well, there's a difference between, a survival intelligence and like civilized intelligence. You take a guy that grew up in New York City that never saw any woods bigger than Central Park, and you drop him in the middle of the woods in Canada, he's going to die. He's not going to survive. He's not going to know what to do. He's not going to know what animals are out there. But by the same token, you grab Greg House over there, who can survive off of bacon fat and pork rinds. We drop him off in the middle of the Mark Twain National Forest, and he'll show up 3 or 4 days later with gained weight.
Yeah. And
Casey, to answer your question there, I don't think they stay in the same area. I think they have a range, just like any other big predator, like mountain lions, like bears. And I think in LBL, the reason why we have so many violent encounters is their range was cut off by the lakes. I think they were deliberately channeled onto that section of ground, and I think that's why so many hunters go missing, because even with plenty of deer, they're still gonna eat everything in an area pretty quickly. And I also think that's why elk and wood bison were reintroduced to LBL, and you're not allowed to hunt them.
Yep, as an offering, so to speak. Because, and you think about it, where that elk and wood bison area is, that's right on the border of where
and right in the middle of LBL,
yeah,
smack in the middle.
Because on one side of the wood bison and elk, it's kind of a nice place.
Mm-hmm.
You see them big 20+ deer herds, but you hear insects and everything at night, and it doesn't feel quite as, I don't know, Friday the 13th ish. Did you go to the other side of it? And like I said, did you not be surprised to see Jason Voorhees step out from behind a tree? And
There's a Casey says, so you think they're absolutely terrestrial? I do. And call that, just blame that on me being a cop for most of my career. Robbie kind of feels the same way. I'm not saying that there's no chance that they're Nephilim, or there's no chance that they came from some other dimension. But if they were able to walk through dimensional barriers, they would have walked into our homes and killed us all. It just makes no sense that if they can hop dimensions, there would be absolutely nothing we could do to stop them. So I think very much they're very terrestrial, especially considering when you factor in the cynocephaly, sightings of these things go back to basically recorded history. Now, the phrase Dogman, when did Dogman originate? Was it late 90s?
98, 99, somewhere around there.
And same thing with Bigfoot. The phrase Bigfoot didn't exist prior to 1957 with the Jerry Cruz footprints. Local paper saw them, said, "Wow, those are big footprints," and the phrase Bigfoot got coined. Prior to that, they were known as wild men or hairy men, all kinds of Native American names for them. But just because we didn't have a name for it prior to 1957 doesn't mean it didn't exist in recorded history. So I think these things have been around a very long time. And yes, I do believe they're terrestrial. I think they're physical creatures. Now, again, we make no claims of being experts on this subject. We're just sharing what we know and what we think, and what we think is far on the heavier side than what we know. There's a lot of stuff we suspect, but nobody knows for sure. And that's kind of where a lot of people get into trouble claiming they're an expert, because there are no experts. And if anybody tells you otherwise, is selling you something. Northwood said the first time he heard the word Dogman was in '87. Huh? Really? Because I thought that phrase was coined by the radio host that was talking about the Michigan Dogman.
Oh.
Maybe the phrase has been around longer. Sorry, I was just looking to see if we missed anything. There we go. Kay Bauer said, Robbie, did you have a gut feeling? I mean, did you have any gut feeling at all that night you said something was trying to get you away from the others? I think he means the night in LBL. No, I think he means LBL, not necessarily Joe Bald.
Joe Bald, I didn't
it wasn't until we were leaving when Robbie's like, that was a bad idea.
Well, no, after you got me, or after Noah got me back over there, and we were sitting there talking, you were like, you said I didn't hear it leave, or whatever your comment was. I said that's because it didn't. And you said you think it's still here. I said, oh yeah, it's still here. It's still right over in that area.
Larry Berlin says, Robbie, do you think you'll always be able to draw your weapon if ambushed?
Absolutely.
I'll probably get mine out. Whether or not I still get my face torn off is another matter. But if it's on top of me before I see it, I'm in trouble. But if I see it from any distance at all, I'm drawing and firing.
Look, this is the mentality you have to have. It's the warrior's mentality. I don't think that there's anybody that can outdo me in any kind of situation. Are there? Yeah, there are. But Greg will tell you, DA will tell you, that's how you train for stuff like that. If I'm in that school walking around and I think, oh, I hope somebody don't get the drop on me, and kids are going to die. I don't feel like there's anybody that can take a man or beast that can take me in a gunfight. And you have to have that mentality when you're in situations like that, because if you hesitate, you're going to die and other people are going to die.
To be effective in your job, you've got to constantly be running scenarios. I mean, I would walk into a convenience store and the first thing I did was look for threats and exits. You're running scenarios constantly, because if you're not, you get complacent, and complacency will kill you in law enforcement. William Nighthawk says, it's been part of my culture for a long time from what my elders told me as a child. So, both Dogman and Bigfoot, hell, we saw them in the margins of the Pira Rice map. So we know for a fact there's earlier historical references. Thanks, William. Appreciate that, brother.
Well, anytime, Chris.
Greg says, yes, no, you're going to win. I'm either going to win or they're going to remember my name when we're done.
Yep. And Rodney will tell you too. That's how we trained. I mean, you don't.
I used to have a T-shirt that I wore on training days that said, they might kill me with my own pistol, but it'll be empty and they'll have beaten me to death with it.
Some people may look at that and say, oh, that's cocky, but if I'm protecting your kid in school, would you not want me to be confident in my abilities? Or if I'm the one that's coming to your aid when somebody's trying to kill you, don't you want me to be confident in my abilities? And not me meaning any soldier, police officer, firefighter, anything. So
it's like General Mathis said. They told us this when I went to the academy. Be professional, be polite, but have a plan to kill everybody in the room.
Yep. Because the more you bleed or more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle.
That's Marchenko 101 right there.
Yep. The only easy day was yesterday.
Damn right. Robbie says Rodney says he would want you for his backup, and that's high praise.
Well, and Roddy and I have backed each other up. Before he was my chief, he was my partner on the road too. And Roddy and I have been through some sticky situations.
Thank you, little Patty.
So, and I would go into any situation with Rodney at my back too.
Steve Payton just sent me a thing. It says, "Lord, make me fast and accurate. Let my aim be true and my hand faster than those who would seek to destroy me. Grant me victory over my foes, and those that wished to do me harm, to do harm to me and mine. Let not my last thought be, if only I had my gun. And Lord, if today is truly that day that you call me home, let me die in a pile of empty brass." I like that.
Yep.
I like that a lot, dude. Thanks for sending that. Had a super chat from Vic again. Vic Kumar says, I watched a Samoan family have a violent encounter with KFC yesterday. Samoans 1, KFC 0. I thought to myself, Bigfoot and Dogman have competition. You know, when it comes to competing for resources, that's not that bad of a reference. I mean, people who want to compete for food, you know, the competitions can get fierce. And you know, I hate to cast any aspersions on anything in particular, but if you know, you know. The way the economy in the world is right now, you know, you got to have that in the back of your head. What's going to happen when those resources dry up? There's going to be a lot of people looking to take either what you've got or what they shouldn't have in the first place. So, you know, and in a situation that's in a survival situation in the woods, you know, animals are going to eat. You know, they're not going to walk away from a meal unless they don't have a choice. So if you've got two grizzly bears fighting over a kill, one of them's going to get his butt whooped. They don't tend to share, especially, you know, if it's a small meal. Wolves and coyotes are about the only animals that'll share a kill, but that's because they're part of a pack. Bears aren't pack animals, and they don't share readily. So I would assume it's the same way with Dogman. Bigfoot, on the other hand, they're more social because they tend to move in family groups. But maybe Dogman's a pack hunter. We don't know. We don't have enough information, but I would suspect that they're probably good with their own kind, but not with anything else getting too close to one of their kills.
But, and I think you're right. I think if let's say Dogman, I would say probably are more apt to be in maybe a pack, pack mentality, just because of what they appear to be. And I would think that there are probably troops or family groups or whatever of Bigfoot, but I would think Bigfoot creatures would probably have to be more likely to be, because there are other types of large great apes and primates that are solitary, and you don't tend to see a lot of that in the canine world. So I would think, you know, there's more chance that you're going to run into multiple Dogmen in an encounter than the chance that you're going to run into multiple Bigfoot. That makes
William Nighthawk. He's absolutely right. The losers are eating. There is no prize for second place. Not in a survival situation.
The plaque for the losers is in the girls' room, boys.
Chris Burkhart says, if Dogman is a pack hunter, you'd be dead. Maybe a clan like the Predator films, but hunt solo. We don't know. We simply don't know enough about Dogman behavior, because most sightings of Dogman are brief. We don't know enough about their behavior to know if they hunt in packs. But if they're as intelligent as we think they are, it would make sense that if you see one, you're probably not seeing the rest of the group. They're probably very intelligent, probably ambush hunters. Wolves tend to be ambush hunters, or wolves will ambush or they'll run their prey down.
I was about to say, wolves are endurance for. I mean, there are ambushes too, but that's the primary. Is that they just run their prey to ground.
Yeah. Camo Dad says only two types of gunfighters: the swift and the dead. And it's very likely that same mentality, survival of the fittest, exists, because we see it across the animal kingdom. Very few animals actually have that nurturing instinct to protect their children for very long. Some do it longer than others, but once they reach a certain maturity level, they're on their own. And but we see those instincts. We don't know what they are. We just don't have enough solid data to say what Bigfoot and Dogman behaviors are. But we can make some, well, what do you call a scientific wild ass guess based on the behaviors of other animals of similar type, like based on wolves or gorillas or chimpanzees. We can make some pretty educated guesses, but that doesn't mean it's right. It could be totally off. Hey, y'all, if you're just tuning in, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Our algorithm is still showing that we're about 40% of the people that watch the show are not subscribed to the channel. So we would sure love to earn your subscription. I know it doesn't cost you a cent to subscribe on YouTube, but there are channel memberships that do cost a little bit. But to actual subscribe to the channel is free. And it doesn't cost you nothing to smash that like button, and we would sure appreciate it. If you guys think we're doing a good job, please hit that like, share, and subscribe, because it helps us get farther into the algorithm and helps us get noticed. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Why don't we go ahead and do another quick giveaway, and then we'll talk a little bit about Scalawag Tactical. So let me pull this up, and we will give away 5 more. Y'all ready?
Hit it.
5 more gift memberships. Looks like these are fixing to go to Lori Barnes, Clarko, Debbie J, Michael X, and Michelle N. Congratulations, folks.
Congrats.
And with these memberships, folks, you'll be able to see some of the private videos we have on the channel. And you'll have access to some different emojis that other people don't have. Like I'm sure you've seen in the chat, some of the wild hunt and Bigfoot emojis that pop up. We're going to do some more of those here soon. Noah and I have been working on some stuff like that for the behind the scenes stuff. So congratulations to all y'all that just won that. And we're going to take a quick second to talk about Scalawag Tactical. Let me pull up the text. And Robbie, just go right ahead.
First, Scalawag is one of our other veteran-owned affiliates, and they make all kinds of blades. Bounty, the Dew Claw, and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, any kind of knife or blade, that's the Wahoo. The DA's got any kind of blade that you want, they got. Great prices. They're continuing to grow, continuing to bring new and better blades to you. They're Gray's Tactical they've partnered with. There's another one that's coming in the next couple of months that they're partnering up with. There's going to be more blades.
Supposedly by the end of I think it's end of October, like 20 new blades.
Yep. So if you can't find a purpose-built knife for you on Scalawag, then there's not a blade you're going to find.
Right now, they've got a buy one, get one free sale going on.
Yep, the Shark's Tooth is definitely buy one, get one free right now.
I love my Shark's Tooth.
Mine should be here by Friday, I think is what it said.
And for those of y'all who are wondering what the Shark's Tooth looks like, it's got a molded Kydex sheath. And it's ambidextrous. You can wear the sheath on either side. And it is a very unique design punch dagger. You can see the Scallywag logo right up there between the tines.
And
This thing is stupid sharp.
Okay, hold that up, DA. This is their regular push dagger, and you see the difference in
The
this
Dugan.
one and the Dugan and the shark's tooth. So, and
I have both,
this,
but this one fits in your hand a little more comfortable than the
This
Dugan.
is a great push
I like
dagger.
the Dugan a lot.
That thing is, and I think I love the Dugan, but I wish it had a Kydex holster instead of the nylon that it's got, because I can't wear this on my vest. There's no way to attach it.
This one's got Kydex with a nylon attachment, but it's on there with bolts, so you could probably put another one on there.
Yep. Well, see, this one is kind of it's made into one big. So anyway, but go check them out. Check out the Blemish Blade section and use code DA Roberts 10 at checkout. Get yourself an extra 10% off. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, I've got one quick thing to add about Scallywag. I spent about an hour and a half on the phone with Craig Burkhart, the owner of Scallywag, the other day, and him and I talked about a number of things, and there's some great things coming. I think you're all going to be really excited to see some of these new knives, and also he's going to be sending me a few of these, not only the titanium one, but the steel one as well. And these are I don't remember how much these things are, but they're a little pricey.
I think those are close to 100, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they may be higher than that. But anyway, he's sending me a few of them to give away here on the channel. He said that that's one of the knives he was hoping would gain some traction, because not a lot of people like these because they're so heavy. But I love mine. That weight to me is just awesome. Especially, I mean, this thing's heavy enough that as a folder, I mean, look how thick that thing is. You can use this as a camp knife. You clip that to a pack strap and have it as an emergency knife. This thing is not only stupid sharp, but it's extremely rugged. And so he's sending me a few of those to give away. And we've got some milestones coming up that we want to do some giveaways for. We're rapidly approaching our 300th episode. And we are closing in on 9,000, but the big one's going to be 10,000 subscribers. And congratulations to Jessica Jones. She just broke 10,000. So congratulations, Jessica. We're proud of you, and hope you break 20,000 soon as well. And
speaking of Jessica, I don't know if you want to go ahead and mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of Jessica, DA, myself, William Nighthawk, who's in the chat, and Edie Testman. Go to Edie's channel on Sunday night at what time? It's 6 o'clock Central. DA.
I don't remember. Eric, if you're still in the chat, can you throw the time up?
Or William? Well, I think it's 6 o'clock
I don't remember.
Central.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember what time it was, but it'll be this Sunday.
Yeah, this Sunday. Y'all come check us out. We're gonna be on Edie's channel. We're gonna be doing a Bigfoot Dogman Q&A. So I'll tune in, ask you questions, kind of like a little panel. So come join us.
Open culling book. I think
Central.
I think they probably do hunting packs. But again, we don't have enough information. But much like, within wolf packs, there are times when they will drive a member out. Like if a beta gets too antsy and tries to challenge the alpha and loses, they'll kick him out of the pack. Or if one continues to have bad behavior, they will kick it out of the pack. So I don't think it's entirely outside of the scope of possibility that you might run into some lone wolves that act a lot more aggressive. But I do believe that at least some of them hunt in packs. What is Edie's channel? It is called The Bizarre and the Unknown. Let me pull that up, and I'll share the link. Give me just a second. I need to set that up on a command.
Yep.
Alrighty, I got the link here. I'm going to post that in the chat. If y'all don't mind, swing over past Well, you don't leave here, but swing over on YouTube on another tab and give him a subscription. It's youtube.com/at the bizarre and the unknown. We'll be on his show this coming Sunday. Again, talking about Bigfoot and Dogman and answering questions. K Bauer says, "D, have you heard anything of the Dogman deaths in Bandera, Texas? Have heard of it, but have no way of knowing if it's true or not." I have heard quite a bit about that. There have been several deaths associated with it, but they keep shutting it up, and it's very hard to investigate that area because a lot of that is government land. However, there's an area in Texas they refer to as the Dogman Triangle. There's a lot of Dogman activity in that area. In fact, we're probably going to do a show here in the near future just on the Texas Dogman Triangle.
Yep.
Thank you all for who everyone is going over there to like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to do the same thing for William. I think let me post his as well.
Yes, John, we'll be live on ED's channel Sunday night.
The channel is called the Nighthawk High Strangeness channel, High Strangeness podcast, and I'm going to post the link right now. Guys, show him some love as well.
Yep.
All righty.
It's gonna be and we kind of kicked around the idea that if this is something that y'all like and is kind of there's a need or not a need, I guess a liking and a wanting, maybe we'll do this once a month on everybody's channel. Everybody kind of takes a turn hosting it. So see how it turns out. If y'all like it and that's something that y'all want, a panel show once a month on different channels.
Let me see if I can pull up a map of the Texas Dogman Triangle.
I know the big thickets in it. Where else? The Small Town Monsters did a pretty good documentary on that too.
Small Town Monsters generally does really good.
Oh yeah. I don't think
Okay.
I've seen any of their documentaries that I was just like, man, that was kind of stupid. They've all been really good, really well produced, well executed.
Give me just a second, because the image I found is pretty small, and I'm going to have to blow that image up so you guys can see it better. Okay. Okay. Now I will share the image so you guys can see this. This is a map of what they call the Dogman Triangle in Texas. And the pins are Dogman sightings. So it runs from Dallas to down near, what is that? I can't read it. It's too blurry. And then over by, looks like, well, this area, it goes from here to up near Dallas, Fort Worth, to over to here. So that's a big chunk of the heart of Texas.
Yep.
Yeah, we're planning on doing something on that particular area here pretty soon. Lori Barnes says Tubi has Small Town Monsters Dogman. You can find a lot of the Small Town Monsters stuff on their YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/smalltownmonsters. But they've got a lot of great documentaries on there, but you can find some of them on Tubi and some of them on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
Casey says, looks like they like Texas. There's a lot of resources down there for them to like. Scared Silly says, I'm surprised the Red River is not included in that triangle. The triangle may actually be bigger than what this is. Just Small Town Monsters' estimation of what they refer to as the Dogman Triangle. It does appear to be where the bulk of the Dogman sightings seem to be happening is within that triangle. But again, that's another great example because there does seem to be a lot of violent encounters inside the Dogman Triangle,
Yeah.
and I think we're starting to see a pattern here of violence in Dogman, even more so than in Bigfoot. Yes, there are missing people and people that have claimed to have violent encounters with Bigfoot, um, but it seems to me that the majority of Dogman encounters are violent.
Well, and Johnny and I were talking about there's a lot of aggressive. I don't know if there has been any kind of fatalities, but there's a lot of aggressive, not only Dogman but Bigfoot as well in the Big Thicket area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of them anomalies to where there may be nothing around that area, but then in that area, which there again, guess what that is? Give you 3 guesses. The first 2 don't even count. But there's a lot of aggressive behavior in that area. So
Kay Bauer says, I was telling DA about Cleo, Texas. In Cleo, Texas, not far away, the dog face carving is what people saw chasing or hunting settlers. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, these are like native carvings of what they were seeing long before the phrase Dogman was ever even heard of. Steve Payton says, DA is what you expect when your food choices are no bigger than a German Shepherd. Jonathan says, yes, very, and they come into our small towns late at night. There's a place in Oklahoma, and I cannot for the life of me remember what the name of the little town is, but it's down in southeastern Oklahoma, down near the it's in the Choctaw Nation, where they were having problems with, and I think it was Coonbo that was telling me about this, that they had Greg, I don't know if this was Coonbo, you'll know the story, but they were having Bigfoot coming into town and raiding people's trash cans, and it was getting bad. Okay, and if it's if they're coming into town like that, that means that means they're losing their fear of humans, and that's a dangerous thing when we start having wild animals not afraid of us anymore.
Yeah, Brown Springs is one that's scared silly talking about that. That's another area.
I believe that's a Bigfoot area, not a Dogman area.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't somebody that we both know have a Dogman sighting in that area?
I think you're right.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Okay. They also talk about big cat sightings in that area because that's not far from where the guy that they called him, what was it, the Tiger King, before he went to prison, and supposedly several tigers escaped.
Yeah, before I think he moved. He ended up moving to Oklahoma, but that's where he was right before he moved that place to Oklahoma. Was there, and before he started really getting into all that trouble.
Yeah. Someone asked about Goatman sightings. I have not been keeping up with any Goatman sightings recently. That's something I'd have to do some digging on. It's not something that I follow a lot because it's kind of a niche cryptid. It's only a small area, and since I've never been there, it's never really piqued my curiosity as much as some of the ones that are seen more universally. But yeah, I'll look into it a little bit more and see if I can find some. Bobby Presnell says it might be near Broken Bow, Oklahoma. That area is definitely woolly enough for it too.
Yeah. You want to refresh the audience in the Broken Bow what we put together?
Right there off Broken Bow Lake. That is the same area where the infamous Choctaw Bigfoot War happened. And it's also the same area where I set the first book of my Odin's Call, my my Codename Wild Hunt series. And I chose that area because I knew it was a very woolly area with a lot of reports coming out of it. I didn't know about the Choctaw thing at the time. But what else we discovered is it's very close to the Heavener Runestone. And that whole area is just really rife with stories. And it is within just a couple miles of where we believe the LaFleur Bigfoot War happened.
Yep. The Charge of the Light Horseman.
Yep, east of Durant, Oklahoma. Bobby, you know exactly where I'm talking about.
That's another one I'd like to go sometime and do a live investigation.
Definitely want to go down there. Yeah, I want to. If we can get that rig built, I want to try to go live from that area. Hey, while we're sending folks to make sure they liked and subscribed to other channels, check out Woodwalkers too. They're a great group of folks, and really good group of people. We've got Greg House in the house tonight and his daughter Abby, but they got a great channel, and I think y'all would enjoy it as well. So check them out.
I saw Misty in the chat earlier too.
Oh, I didn't see Misty. If I missed her, I'm sorry. Hi, Misty. But yeah, that's right. She won one of the That's right. I did know.
She's doing Misty things. Hey, I'm in the chat. I'm listening, but I'm doing Misty things, putting stuff in bottles and whatever else she does. Right, Greg?
Pat Noble, Edie's channel is called The Bizarre and the Unknown out there on YouTube. Sonia, that's our plan, is if we can build the deck I'm wanting to build, we're basically building a large repeater to boost signal strength, so we would be able to actually physically go live from these locations. We've got a couple places here in Missouri that are in the butt crack of nowhere. We're gonna field test it, but once we know it's working, we're gonna try LBL. We're gonna try Werewolf Springs. There are a lot of other places we want to be able to set up and just go live from those locations.
Yep. We did that little experiment in Joe Bald, and
we had mixed results. Not great.
Yeah.
But it was a weird part because we would lose signal within like 3 steps. We would go from having full bars to nothing in just a few steps.
So we just kind of started talking after that and trying to figure out what.
Hi, Kathy.
What would we need to make this work?
Well, it's by the time it's all said and done, it's probably going to be, well, just to build the deck, the booster deck for boosting a signal, that's probably going to be a better part of 500 to 1,000, depending on how expensive the components we opt with. I want to try it out and make sure it works, and I don't want to break my bank because I'm doing most of this on my own. But if we can build the deck, then hopefully if Robbie and Doc can make it down this way later this year before it gets too cold, we can actually plan a live. And Wyatt said he's been looking for a pontoon boat, and if we could get a pontoon down there on the lake, we could take an expedition into Combs Ferry. I think it would be great to go in there and film live.
Yep.
Steve says, has there been any Dogman or Bigfoot reports? Yeah, up there near Truman Lake, there are tons of them. More Bigfoot than Dogman, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are more Dogman stories up there than I know about. But up near Truman Lake and near what is that other lake up there? Stockton Lake. Between Truman and Stockton Lake, there are tons of stories. K Bauer says pontoon boat could go to Dogman Island too. That's another good place for us to hit. And with a pontoon, we can stow enough extra heavy duty battery cells that we wouldn't have to pack in.
And we don't have to have 3 people waiting for everybody else to get there.
Yeah. Slow extraction.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is we're pretty lucky. One, that Steve wasn't hurt more severely. and two, that we didn't have to pull a tactical retreat from that place. Because if we'd had to put Bug out of there in a hell of a hurry, it would have gotten ugly.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Edie says, I'll be going to that Ozark Howler sightings a few months ago. Hey, dude, let me know. If you're going up there to check it out, maybe I can ride with you. Northwood says you can also mount heavy weapons on a pontoon boat. Well, I can't say I disagree with that.
In a perfect world,
turn a pontoon into a swick boat.
So I was about to say, in a perfect world, I would love for us to have all the equipment and be able to just go all these places and try this, and this be our job. What we do is just constantly go to all these places that we've talked about and do live investigations.
Yeah, we would love that. Antonio Vasquez says go live from LBL towns talking to people about the Beast of LBL. Probably won't work as well as you think because the folks in Grand Rivers don't want to talk about it. Not at all.
Yeah, and LBL
I got thrown out of a bait shop because of it. Well, I didn't get physically thrown out. I got politely asked to leave. They weren't bad. They weren't mean about it. They were just done talking to me.
And we tried to go live from the LBL, and it was just something kind of weird about that.
Yeah, they kept losing power. Devices were just straight up dying. Devices with full charges were going from full charge to nothing in just a matter of a couple minutes. We did manage to go live for a bit, but LBL is going to be one of those that we're probably going to have to take like a solar generator with us. That's something else I would like to add to the wish list of things for going out in the field doing live broadcasts, because a solar generator would eliminate the need for a lot of like heavy battery storage.
Yep.
Uh, 443 Big Vic says, anyone paid any attention to the contents becoming from Dark Waters lately? He's been doing a lot of political stuff, and I tend not to watch that. It's not that I'm burying my head in the sand. This is an election year, and we're getting beat over the head with it. So I try to avoid political commentaries and political shows, simply because I already have made up my mind, and I don't plan on changing it. So I don't watch those. Hey, John Wayne says dinner finally got over. Hello from Washington State. Good to have you here, man. See if I missed any questions real quick. Camo Dad says, I've heard from several people reception in the LBL is rough. When I was in LBL the first time, it was like a cellular dead zone. I couldn't pick up hardly anything, but I'm hoping if we can build this booster that, because the place is surrounded by inhabited zones, so people are getting cell phone signals outside of LBL. It was just like at DeMumbers Bay, I had nothing. For the most part, when I was in LBL, I had no bars.
See, but that's what's weird about it. I had a 30-minute phone conversation with DA from DeMumbers Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like, where are you at? I said, DeMumbers Bay. And he was like, what?
That was with my old phone provider. I'm with AT&T now, so I'm willing to bet I probably got better signal. Kirst says, DA question, what about actually setting up a wish list and adding it to your socials? That way anyone who can and wants to help you guys. That's a good idea. I think me and Robbie will put together a wish list, and I'll set up like a wish list thing on Amazon and share that on the medias. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Greg said at LBL, AT&T was decent. Okay, well, then I think my booster idea will work. I think it'll work pretty well because, well, I don't want to go into a lot of details. So, DA says DA don't use Apple. I don't own any Apple products at all. No computers, no phones, no nothing. I had an iPhone once, Didn't really like it as much as I do my Androids.
Me too, House. Me too.
Yeah, no kidding. Somebody got a spare Ma Deuce laying around. We'd sure love it.
Yep.
John Lamb says only got to raise $50K for the Alaska trip.
Yes, and that's
Steve,
still in the works.
yes, I am. Yeah, I am. I'm on that. We're coming up on the 9:30 mark. We'll take another quick stop. This time, no offense to Ken Brock. Check out Ken Brock at brockblades.com. Use discount code cryptid10 for 10% off. But check him out. But tonight I thought I would shamelessly plug my own stuff again. So this is Miss Naoma talking about my books.
From the mind of author D.A. Roberts. Cryptids. Lakeview Man. Apex Predator. Codename Wild Hunt. Zombies. The Ragnarok Rising Saga. Science fiction and fantasy. Lost Legion. Find them all at daroberts.net or amazon.com.
I need to do an updated version of that because there's quite a few books out now that aren't on that. There's no reference to the Dark Frontiers series. Man's Marauders isn't mentioned, so we need to do an updated version of that. Greg says never been on a plane, but be down for an Alaska trip. Here's the kicker. Tough to take all the equipment we want to take on a plane because of weight. So what I was thinking was chartering a boat to Anchorage from like Seattle or Washington, somewhere in Washington. Was thinking about that. I don't know, but with all the gear we're going to take, it's going to be tough to fly with.
I think that's how we have to do something like that. Is we have to do it where we can pack up everything. Like if Doc has to rent us a big SUV or something like that, where we can pack all our equipment and drive to wherever and rent a private charter boat where we can go. Because
I'll tell you one thing. We took 7 people into Combs Ferry. We're taking more than that when we go into
100%. And because that's not yeah, we were still relatively close to civilization in Combs Ferry. We ain't gonna be nowhere close to civilization out there because we're gonna take food, we're gonna take shelter, we're gonna take medical. Yeah,
we will have to rent a large boat where everybody has place to sleep, or we can use that as a mobile base. Yeah, it's not going to be. Lori says Doug Highcheck might be able to. Yeah, I would definitely be talking to Doug before we did it. But I would like to speak to some of these folks about it, but I don't want anybody taking it over. I know there are much bigger channels than ours out there. This is ours. I don't want bigger channels just going, okay, well, all right, let us handle this and you guys can just come along. That's not how I want to play that. But I would definitely talk to Doug about advice on how to get our gear there and who to charter, who I could trust, that kind of thing. Greg says ship the gear to Alaska, then fly there and get on a boat. I would probably arrange it ahead of time. I would like to get with Fred Rolls and have him guide us in. Plus, we'd also have Fred make sure that we'll put us in touch with the right people to get permission to be in there, because that's all native land. So I don't want to just show up and go in there without permission. That would just be disrespectful and rude.
That's not a bad idea. But how much would it cost to ship, like especially the weapons and because what we would have to probably. What we would have to go through to get weapons shipped up there, it might be just easier, like I said, just to just to drive it up there, especially if we got enough of us so we can take turns and not have to worry about, stopping, and we could just kind of drive straight through. It wouldn't be that bad, I don't think.
Yeah, that wouldn't be that horrible of a drive if we had multiple people doing it. Linda, I hope you like Lost Legion. My sci-fi books, I really enjoyed writing them, but they've never been the big sellers that the others have. So I don't think nearly as many people have read the sci-fis as they had the others. But I'm pretty proud of those. I was really happy with the way those turned out. Miss Lene, she says, couldn't Fred line up the weapons and gear? Probably to an extent. I'm sure Fred's got a number of pew-pews, but we're talking about outfitting a big group. So we're probably going to have to put everything we want in like a shipping container and and send it, and then charter a big enough boat where it can handle all our gear.
And not for nothing, Lene, that's a good idea. But when you're going into a situation like that, you don't want to go in with something that's untested that you're not familiar with. You want to take your own weapon that you're familiar with, that and Greg and DA are both, and even Doc will back me up on that. That's not going into a situation like that, in a place like that. You don't want to be in there with a weapon that you're not familiar with.
Dang right. Greg House says Robbie a C-130, probably driving is crossing Canada with guns. What would have carry there is U.S. states that would have questions. Yeah, you can't carry into Canada. It just you'll wind up in jail. So we would have to either ship our stuff or take it over by boat. Either one's not a bad option depending on the size of the boat. Because I know it is pretty far from mainland lower 48 to Anchorage, but it's not as far as you think. It'd probably a couple days by boat. But we would definitely be taking not only a lot of heavy equipment, but some heavy ordnance as well. And Alaska is very pro 2A, so I don't have any concern about what we're carrying.
Yeah. It's just, I think if we tried to ship it up there, I think we'd probably run into more money than it would be than us to just load everything up in a couple vehicles and go.
Well, like you said, we couldn't drive it through Canada. Just couldn't do it.
Well, I mean, is getting to a certain point and then, but shipping it because you think about it, we're all leaving from different spots. So if we had to ship from here to wherever we're shipping to, then everybody's going to either have to ship to one person or everybody's going to have to ship individually to there. And I think that's going to be a huge, huge nightmare, because what happens if one of us gets up there and,
logistically, we're going to have to figure out the logistics on the back end of that, because we're not talking about a small planning. It's not like we're just throw some shit in a backpack, grab a pistol, and we're going to pop in like we did on Combs Ferry. This would be a major excursion. So I still want to look at maybe getting the backing of a certain individual here in Missouri that you and I talked about.
Yep.
Kay Bauer says better carry some dragon's breath too. Doc, cold weather, Wendigos, and snowmobiles. Yeah, Steve Patton says get Kentucky Ballistics to join.
Well,
he might.
He's former LE too, so
yeah, he might do it. Hell, the dude might bankroll it just for the YouTube videos. But I don't have any contacts with the guy.
I've emailed him, but I've emailed him about coming on the show.
That would be pretty freaking cool.
I can reach out to him again. I mean, he's a good dude. I mean, I know people who have talked to him. I'll get back on that and see if I can nail that down.
Worth a shot. And I will see if I can get an audience with the guy that owns Bass Pro. I'm not sure I can. I may just get completely ignored, but I will reach out to his office and see if I can maybe get a chance to make a proposal. I mean, the guy can afford it, but whether or not we can convince him is the trick.
Yeah. Well, he definitely can afford it.
Yeah. Don said, DA, the Ragnarok Rising is the first books I read in the Lost Legion. Well, I hope you enjoyed the Lost Legion. I mean, I like I said, I'm pretty proud of those. I didn't know if I'd ever write sci-fi, and I just decided, what the hell, I'll try it. And I thought they turned out pretty well.
You see what Hooter Transport said?
No.
I'm bringing it up on the stream now.
Okay.
Come on.
There we go.
Come on. Okay. Say.
Yeah. That'd work. Just put everything in a freaking Connex and put it on the barge, and away we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate that, man. And like I said, it's going to be more than just the small group we took into Combs Ferry, because this is a full on. There's going to be a scout team. There's going to be a medical team. There's going to be a support team. There's going to be at least 3 teams on the ground. There'll be the guys that are actually physically looking for tracks, and Robbie will definitely be on that team. But it all depend on who we get involved. But I'm not talking. I'm probably talking 20 or more individuals. We would definitely need a support team to come bail us out if we're trying to make a quick extraction. Medical team, which we would have multiple people that are doc quality trained.
Because something I know we've thought about it, we just hadn't voiced it, but we're going to need communication.
Much better than the crappy walkies I've got.
I would say probably we need something, and Clint may be able to suggest something good for this, but maybe the throat mics, so nobody has to worry about,
Well, depending on the time of the year, it may be cold enough. We'd want a mic that, like those lash mics that stay under the balaclava.
Yeah.
K Bauer says, I want to go. Robbie, I need some NVGs for Christmas.
Well,
John Lamb says Seattle to Anchorage is 1,100 miles by water. That's still not too bad, though.
Nah.
I mean, it's 1,100 miles, driving to Washington State, basically. Longer for you. Santa Robbie. Hell, my beard's grayer than yours.
Well, yours is longer. I don't know if it's my beard's as gray as yours, but just I got more dark in my mustache than you do. My mustache is holding on a little bit longer than my beard.
Greg says if your head gets ripped off, I don't think Doc has a tourniquet for that.
Hey,
yeah,
you never know. Doc's pretty good.
We would definitely, we'd be telling people, hey, we'll provide medical coverage to get you to a hospital, but people are going to sign waivers. If it's too dangerous, don't go.
Night, William.
Good night, William.
See you Sunday, brother.
K Bauer says super glue and duct tape. Damn right. We'll take the military grade 100-mile-an-hour tape. Greg says he really will buy a flamethrower. RDG, Rodney, he says it's 1,695 nautical miles. So yeah, there's a bit of a logistics issue for it, but it doesn't mean we're not still going to do it. But we can build that booster deck like we want. then we're going to do some more local ones, ones that are much easier for us to get to as a build up, to troubleshoot it, to learn the ins and outs, make sure we're doing it right, make sure we're putting out consistent videos where we're not dropping off all the time, and we'll definitely be testing that a little more locally. We'll probably do some stuff out in Robbie's neck of the woods, maybe over in the Uwharrie National Forest. We'll definitely go to Werewolf Springs and LBL. Probably try to get down to Brown Springs, maybe even the Texas Triangle.
Yeah, I definitely would want to field test it on a few different places before we
went that remote.
Yeah.
Judy Davis says trip sounds good, but I'll volunteer to be one of those watching from home. You still need an audience. That we definitely do. And I think starting to do videos like that, not only would it set us apart from other channels, but it would provide something that even the networks aren't doing, because those shows, like, well, you guys know what shows I'm talking about. They're all heavily edited, much like the one Robbie likes to point out. How they will stop and they'll say, "Well, we heard it up here on the ridge, so we decided to go up there." Yeah, that's all scripted and put out ahead of time. This would be live in the field, so what we saw, you saw. We may not find anything, or we may get the shit scared out of us, or some might even get something a little more aggressive. But we would definitely be there's no editing done here. There's no cutting the camera away just when a critical moment gets up. We either all see it or we don't see it.
Yeah. We're running up the hill and somebody stops and we do an interview. Well, we just heard somebody over here. We got to run up there and find out what's going on.
Right.
So did you stop in the middle of going up there to have your interview? Or was this after the fact? It's just...
I would definitely be putting some dragon's breath in my KSG. But there would be 2 sets of videos coming out of each one of those expeditions. There'd be the live one, and then of course everybody's going to have their own cameras and pictures. Then there would be shows where we released some of the videos that other people took and stuff like that. So we would either have the live in the field plus one of the lives like we're doing right now where we discuss all that, or we put together just a series of videos and release them on the channel. So there'd be a lot of material coming out of every time we go out.
Yeah,
Gary Lowe says, after all these years, the Bigfoot up there might be very aggressive with men coming back in. And that's why we're not going up there singing Kumbaya and expecting it to be a big teddy bear. If we can't give it an apple, we're friends for life. We're not expecting that. We're expecting trouble, because that terrain, some of the most rugged in the world. And other than the hairy man, there are dangerous things in the Alaskan woods that have nothing to do with Bigfoot. So plenty of things up there that can and will eat you. So we would definitely have to go in well prepared, well heeled.
Yep.
Yeah, Justin says we need to drop off a mimic unit. Yeah, basically. But that's essentially what the boat's going to be for. That's going to be the command post. Our uplinks will be there, our battery chargers will be there. We'd want to be on station not just for a few hours. We'd want to be on station probably for the better part of a week. If we're going to go to the expense to go all the way up there, we're going to be there a while.
Yeah.
While Thompson says Columbia, Missouri is about 3.5 hours for me. About that for me too. I mean, Columbia's up past Jeff City for me. So yeah, probably 3.5 hours for me to get to Columbia. Don Donaldson. Yeah, that's something we would definitely do. Everybody would have GoPros. And we'd also be capturing drone footage too. So Billy Mitchum's right. Moose kill more people in Alaska than grizzlies do. So yeah, we would have a lot of dangerous things that we'd have to contend with that aren't necessarily cryptid related, which is exactly why we've got to do some practice runs before we're ready for the big leagues. Because I think that's like, I don't like the ultimate live.
Yep.
Yeah, Sonia, you're right. If we're going to go that far, we're going to make it worth our time. K Bauer says need to call Clark and Gray Eagle too. They'd probably squash the trip though. Like, you idiots don't need to be going up there. You guys are going to get yourself eaten. Probably wouldn't stop us.
Nah. It hadn't up to this point. And terrain, yes, but situation, no. I don't think this is any more of a dangerous situation than going to the LBL, because, I mean, look how many people have gone missing and been killed at the LBL.
Well, Portlock is in the Alaskan Triangle, and look how many people go missing there with nothing.
But remember what Fred said about the Alaskan Triangle?
Yeah.
It's just Alaska. That's just what happens up there. People...
Yeah.
And that's the key thing, though, that a lot of these people don't have, that we would have, is Fred.
Yeah. Larry, we would probably, the guy we would go with as his guide is Fred Roll from Subarctic Sasquatch. We've had Larry on the show. You might even invite him, but Larry's got a big enough channel on his own that I don't want another channel trying to take over. This is ours. Lyle McThompson says 10. What are you hearing about a 10-foot tall dogman? Thought the dogmen were smaller than Bigfoot. Generally, most reports of dogmen were between the 6 and 7 foot range, but there are some that have been reported, 10, 11, 12 feet tall. They're more rare, but the one I saw was between 6.5 and 7 feet tall. It wasn't massive, but it's not unheard of. There have been reports of dogmen being very big. And that doesn't really surprise me, because I had an English Mastiff, and he was about 2 bills when he was in his biggest, maybe $180, but he was a big dog, and he'd put his paws on my shoulder and look me dead in the face, and his back half of his body would still be out at about a 45-degree angle. He wasn't up as high as he could have been if he had stood up like some dogs do on their hind legs. If he'd have stood up on his hind legs, that dog would have been 8 feet tall. He's a big old Mastiff, and that's just a dog. Greg says, Misty, can you not see Robbie morph into a badger, man? Badgers? We don't need no stinking badgers.
Nope. It wouldn't be. If I was gonna morph into something, you see my answer.
Yeah, Wyatt's not wrong. Those are called alphas. Ones that tend to be that big are pack leaders. It says Steve Stepanek said the dogman around him was around 10 feet. Again, like I said, most sighting reports are between 6 and 7 feet, but there are a lot that report them to being much bigger. And I would say it's much like with bears. The farther north you get, the bigger they tend to get. I mean, look how bears are built. But down here in the lower 48, there are 19 subspecies of black bear, and it's rare that black bears get over a few hundred pounds. They're just generally not as big. But then you get a little farther north where it's colder, and their diet is far more meat than it is omnivorous. Now, grizzlies are omnivorous. I'm not saying they're not, but they eat a lot more meat than they do berries and twigs. Black bears are more browsers. They'll eat berries. They'll eat small animals. They'll eat just about anything, but for most of their diet is berry and root and grubs, that kind of thing. But brown bears, much colder climate, much more meat in their diet, are a much bigger animal. and sometimes in excess of 1,000 pounds. Then you get up even farther north and run into polar bears, and those things are confirmed man eaters. They're not omnivores; they are meat eaters. They eat fish, they eat seals, they eat slow Eskimos. The occasional idiot that gets off a path. Polar bears eat meat, and they've been known to eat people, and it's not that uncommon up there north of the Arctic Circle. And those bears are massive, and that's not even taking into account the number of sightings from parts of British Columbia and Saskatchewan and even parts of Alaska, of the possibility of the short-faced bear still being around. That's a megafauna bear that could get as tall as 19 feet on its hind legs. And there are reports of those, and they're easy to tell from a grizzly because one, their fur is lighter, and two, they have a very shorter, blunter snout. You look up the short-faced bear. If those things still exist in the wilds, that is a massive land predator, and I would not want to run into one. Sonia Morgan says, my Burmese mountain dog Max weighed 225 at his heaviest, and he was taller than me on his hind legs. Amazing dogs. Yeah, dogs are fantastic. And those big breeds of dogs can get really big. But again, I think, when you're dealing with Bigfoot or Dogman, I think the colder the climate, the more likely they are eating other things. They're not necessarily eating berries and roots. And I'm not saying that they don't down here in the lower 48. They might be just pure predators. But I would say they're probably very opportunistic. I mean, how many sightings of Bigfoot have there been in blackberry patches? So these things are eating what they can find all the time. They browse very much like a black bear. But you get farther north when that vegetation is a little more scarce and these things are relying more on protein. I would imagine that's probably why some of the ones up in Alaska reported at 15 and 18 feet tall. Heck, Ron Moorhead said they found a track in Alaska. It was 24 inches long.
And Maz, to answer that's not really stories. There's and I don't remember which way it is. Like if the mother's the grizzly and the father's the polar bear, or vice versa. There's Pisleys and growers.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds funny, but that's what they're called, and they're documented. That matter of fact, I think they said McFarland's bear was probably one of those mixed breeds like that. Isn't that what they said, DA?
I think so.
Because they thought it might be or possibly be one of the short-faced bears or something that they just missed or everything, and they got a little bit more in depth on the autopsy, and they said it was. I can't remember if it was a Pisley or a growler, but I can't stand saying those two words. But they sound so stupid, but that's what they are. They said it was one of those.
Give me just a second. I have an image for us. If it'll quit opening on the wrong screen.
And somebody asked a question if Cody was, when he was in bear form, was taller than Gray Eagle in wolf form.
Oh, yeah. Gray Eagle probably tops out at around 11 to 12 feet. Kodiak is probably closer to 18 to 19 feet tall. He's massive because he channels the short-faced bear. Okay, let me show this. This is an eye-opener, to be sure. This is your average grizzly bear, your brown bear. Polar bear, short-faced bear. That's just how much. I mean, the polar bears right now is considered the biggest known bear species on the planet.
Yep.
But if the short-faced bear is out there, it's bigger than the polar bear by a lot. And
that's the movie Grizzly. Even though they said grizzly or called it grizzly, the short-faced bear is pretty much what they were saying that was, which is why it was big enough to attack a helicopter, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that bear could basically, and I think DA said this one time, you could be in your backyard and the bear could come up in the front yard and stand up on its hind legs and pretty much look at you over the top of your house if you got a one-story house.
Yeah, it could look over your house on its hind legs into your backyard.
That's scary.
Prospecting says he wants one for a pet. As awesome as that would be,
Have fun with that.
yeah, you could ride that damn thing like a horse. Yeah, Roxanne says short-faced bear were considered nothing to mess with. Yeah, they were considered the largest land predator of its day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say there would be very little, other than a Bigfoot or maybe several dogman that would tangle with one and walk away.
I don't even know that a normal Bigfoot could tangle with one of those things and walk away. At least not unscathed.
Yeah, definitely not unscathed. I mean, that's probably 2,000 pounds of bear.
Oh, well, if you figure a big grizzly is 1,200, 1,300 pounds, it's probably maybe 25.
Yeah, it's definitely twice the size of your average grizzly. I would say, pushing 1 to 2,500 pounds, probably not outside the realm of possibility. They were saying in the movie you were mentioning that it's yeah. David Neal says the bear smashed a log cabin to kindling. Mm-hmm. That would be the kind of crap a short-faced bear could do.
Well, I mean, think it pretty much pushed one of the watchtowers over.
Yeah.
It grabbed a hold of a helicopter and caused it to crash. It supposedly swatted the head off a horse with one claw swipe. I mean,
that's a powerful animal.
Little Patty, I have not seen the movie. I've read the what it was actually based on, but I haven't seen the movie. That's just,
I haven't either.
It didn't really interest me because it's not. It seems just like one of those tongue-in-cheek comedies.
Yeah, Eric, A.D. Tischman says, imagine going to war riding that thing. You probably won without shedding any blood. You go riding in on that thing, most of your enemies are probably just going to get the hell out of its way.
I just,
And that thing at 19 to 20 feet tall in that ballpark, if a bear, we know from the fossil records and bones that a 20-foot tall bear existed at one point. I don't think, a 10-foot Bigfoot is really that outside the realm of possibility. Roxanne says the short-faced bear was as big as an Allosaurus. That is a big animal.
Yeah. So basically, short of a T-Rex, there wasn't a whole lot that would have been walking around that was gonna
mess with that thing.
Gonna mess with it,
and I don't think it existed at the
same. That's what I was about to say. I don't think they were in the same time frame.
Yeah, Steve, you're right. It'd be like when the Polish had Wojciech, the war bear image used as a short-faced bear. Yeah, the Polish in World War II taught a bear to fight. Camo Dad says, what kind of saddle would you need? A big one. A big custom build. But, again, that's because there are reports coming in all the time of people seeing a bear that they described as the short-faced bear. And even like the tribes that live in that area of like British Columbia and Saskatchewan, all those areas of northern Canada, it's part of their lore. It's just things they've drawn.
Well, I mean, look at some of the pictures of these 1,400 pound bears, the big brown bears they put in. Look how massive those things are, and those are small compared to what these. It's just it's hard to put it in perspective.
much like we were saying with how hard it'd be to put down a Bigfoot, that 14-foot grizzly bear that was killed in Alaska had 38 caliber slugs embedded in its breastbone. Didn't slow it down. And the guy that shot it with the 38 was in its stomach with the
I was
pistol.
about to say he was embedded in its stomach.
Yeah, he was. He went down. He got choked down with the pistol. So if a grizzly bear that weighed probably in the ballpark of 1,400 pounds and was 14 feet tall can do that, imagine a 20-foot bear that weighs twice that.
There's not much that's going to dissuade or deter that bear from doing whatever it wants to do.
Yeah, unless your cabin's made out of adamantium like Wolverine's bones, yeah, it's probably coming in.
And standing up and trying to look big and going, bear, 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 ain't going to work.
Standing up and looking big, it's still going to go. I mean, you'd just get pounded. There would be no stopping a bear that big. And again, I'm not even sure something like a 458 SOCOM would punch a bear that big's breastbone. That is the time when you would definitely be aiming for the squishy bits and the big bleeds.
Yep. Pelvic girdle.
Mm-hmm. Roxanne says there are documentaries on short-faced bear on YouTube. Yeah. If those things are still alive, like some people claim, yeah, that is something you definitely, I mean, that'll eat you and your horse.
Yeah, just ask Richard Jekyll. And yes, Sonia, what DA was talking about the guy that got it with the 38 revolver? Yeah, it was a revolver, wasn't it?
Yeah, 38 caliber revolver.
Yeah, that really happened.
Speaking of 38s, I just picked up I won't put it on camera because YouTube will flip out, but I just picked up a rather large box of 38 Freedom Seeds.
Freedom Seeds.
Been trying to stock up on ammo here and there as I can.
I always do that.
Roxanne says, could Dogman be a step off of dire wolves? That's something we've already talked about, and I think so. I mean, the number of people have reported Dogman approaching on all fours, and then they heard a popping sound as it stood up, and they saw hands. So maybe it's something like a dire wolf that learned to manipulate things. There are dog species that, well, hell, my dog Harley can open the screen door on the back. He does that with his paw.
I saw a video on Facebook the other day. A dog had, I don't know if it got run over, whatever, but it lost both its front legs. And that dog learned to stand up on its hind legs and walk. There was video of it walking through the people. It just looked like a person walking through the house. I was like, holy crap. But it's the weirdest thing. But everywhere the dog went, other than when it was like laying down or whatever, but if it was moving, it was standing up just like a human walking through the house. So it is possible for canine species to learn to do that.
And there are lots of videos of dogs that have learned to pick stuff up. I've seen numerous videos of those. And granted, they're not like manipulating things like we would with our hands, but they're like gripping things with their paws and putting them in their mouth.
Yep. You saw it too, didn't you, ED? He was wearing a backpack in one of the clips. It's the weirdest. It was the weirdest because when I was flipping through, I saw it and I saw this dog walking on his back leg, but it wasn't hopping like a dog normally does it was just like taking steps, one foot after the other, and it was just moving along. I was like, that's weird.
Yeah. Folks, we're a little over the 2-hour mark. I've got to get up like stupid early in the morning and get some stuff taken care of. So we're going to start winding things up. We always talk about the 22 a day foundation, how we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and the toll that's taken on our men and women in law enforcement is just as bad. Look at the Officer Down memorial page to see what kind of damage we're losing on officers in line of duty and in other deaths as well. It's mind blowing, and it's not being reported in the press like it should. And if you don't think there's a war on cops, look at Officer Down memorial page and see how many officers we're losing. And it's sad, but we need to show more respect and more appreciation for all of our men and women in uniform. It doesn't matter, what branch of the military they served in. Doesn't matter what uniform they wore in, as a first responder. We need to let these folks know we care about them. And Clint Bruce, I'm sure you guys, anybody that's read Codename Wild Hunt, Operation Blood Eagle recognizes that name. But Clint's a real guy. He's a friend of mine. He's a retired Naval Spec War. I think you guys know what that means. Really good dude, amazing guy, but he runs a charity to help fallen veterans and their families. And I was talking to Clint about that just a couple of days ago. We spent some time on the phone, and we're going to be partnering with them to help not only increase awareness to the number of soldiers, and 22 a day, but also specifically help in certain areas. So I'm going to get with Clint on that, and I'll have more coming on that soon. But it's something it's really kind of touched me inside, and that's something I feel compelled that we need to do. And I'll be given on my part as well, and I'll be putting some information in the books about how you can reach out and help, and we'll talk about it here on the show. But look for that coming in the not so distant future. That's about all I can tell you about it right now, because I don't have a whole lot of details. It's just Clint and I were discussing a lot of ideas, and I think it's going to be great for us to be able to help with a very beautiful cause. So y'all bear that in mind about the toll that's taken on our men and women in uniform, and reach out to them and let them know you're thinking about them. I'm really getting excited about how the direction this book is taken. Heart of Iron is close to being done. It's close to, it's right around 60,000 words right now, which means I'm going to be wrapping it up. Big fight coming up, and then a couple of closing chapters. But my alpha readers all seem to be pretty excited about it, and I think you guys will be too. It's going to be a great book. It's going to be called Heart of Iron, and at the end of that book, Gray Eagle will be coming home. So those of you who've been looking forward to that, you'll get what you've been wanting. Hopefully I'll have it out in the next couple of weeks if things continue to go the way they're going. So be watching for that as well. And now that we're winding things down, we have been closing the show out on a toast. And since I'm just drinking water tonight, I'm not going to get my drinking horn out. But it's an old Irish drinking song called "The Parting Glass," and it's really about saying goodbye to those we've lost along the way. And those of us that served in any capacity have all had brothers and sisters buried under that folded flag. And this is for them. This toast is for those that we've all lost along the way. So if you guys join me, doesn't matter what you're drinking. Like I said, I'm just drinking water. The quote says, "But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and joy be to you all." Good night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on Ex Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.